Okay, so today we are continuing our reading of Franz Kafka, The Trial. We are in the middle of chapter 7. And in the copy of my book, which is a Schocken, I think. Let me see who this is. Knopf. This is a Knopf edition. Uh, Little beyond the middle of page 129. And with that, I will ask Joe to begin.
He was a short, cheerful man, an industrialist whom Kay knew well. He regretted having disturbed Kay in important work, and Kay regretted, for his part, that he had kept the industrialist waiting for so long. However, he expressed this regret with an almost artificial insistence, and in such a mechanical way that if the industrialist hadn't been completely preoccupied by his business concerns, he would have noticed. Instead, he hurriedly got calculations and tables out of all his pockets, spread them out in front of Kay, explained various items, corrected a minor accounting error that had come to his notice, even in this brief overview, reminded Kay of a similar business deal they'd done about a year ago, mentioned in passing that this time another bank was making enormous sacrifices to bid for the business, and finally fell silent in order to hear Kay's opinion. Kay had actually been following the industrial's explanation well at first. The thought of the important deal had gripped him too, though unfortunately not for the duration. He had soon stopped listening, then for a bit longer had nodded in response to the industrialist's louder exclamations, but had finally stopped even doing that and limited himself to looking at the bald head bent over the papers and wondering when the industrialist would finally realize that all his words were pointless. When he stopped talking, Kay at first really believed that this had happened in order to give him the opportunity to acknowledge that he wasn't capable of listening. He felt only regret, however, at seeing the expectant look of the industrialist, apparently ready for any counter argument, and realizing that the meeting had to be continued. He therefore inclined his head as if complying with an order and began to move his pencil slowly back and forth across the papers. Now and again, he paused and stared at a figure. The industrialist suspected objections. Perhaps the figures weren't really watertight. Perhaps they weren't what was at issue. At any rate, the industrialist covered the papers with his hand and, moving very close to Kay, began presenting his proposal all over again. It's difficult, said Kay, pursing his lips and sinking back against the armrest of his chair, disorientated as the papers, the only tangible things there, were covered up. Even when the door to the director's room opened and revealed, not completely clearly, as if behind a veil, the deputy director, he barely had the strength to look up. He didn't give it any further thought, but paid attention only to the immediate consequence, which was very gratifying to him, because the industrialist immediately hopped up from his chair and hurried towards the deputy director. However, Kay would have liked to make him 10 times more nimble. He was afraid that the deputy director might disappear again. His fear was unfounded. The gentlemen met each other, shook each other's hands, and went up to Kay's desk together. The industrialist complained that Mr. Kay had shown so little enthusiasm for the deal and pointed at Kay, who was leaning over the papers again under the gaze of the deputy director. When the two of them leant on the desk and the industrialist set about getting the deputy director on his side, Kay felt as if he himself was being negotiated over above his head by two men whose dimensions he exaggerated in his mind. Joan, would you like to take it from there?
Yeah. Joe. Okay, yes, me.
Yeah.
I had a hard time following your
my translation. But I go on another bit, and
your translation is very, very different. Yes.
And I don't think mine is quite as good as the other ones. Slowly, he attempted, with his eyes turned carefully upwards.
Yeah, that's where I am. I found that.
There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Slowly lifting his eyes as far as he dared, he peered up to see what they were about, then picked one of the documents from the desk at random, laid it flat on his open palm, and gradually raised it, rising himself with it to their level. In doing this, he had no definite purpose, but merely acted with the feeling that this was how he would have to act when he had finished the great task of drawing up the plea, which was completely to acquit him. The deputy manager, who was giving his full attention to the conversation, merely glanced at the paper without ever reading what was on it, for anything that seemed important to the assessor was unimportant to him, took it from Kay's hand and said, "Thanks, I know all that already," and quietly laid it back on the desk again. Kay darted an angry look at him, but the deputy manager did not notice that, or if he did, was only amused. He laughed loudly several times, visibly disconcerted the manufacturer by a quick thrust. At once saved him by countering it himself, and finally invited the man into his private office where they could decide the transaction together. "It is a very important proposal," he said to the manufacturer. "I generally agree." And the Herr Assessor, even in saying that, he went on addressing himself only to the manufacturer, will, I am sure, be relieved if we take it off his shoulders. Donna?
This business needs thinking over, and he seems to be overworked today. Besides, there are some people who have been waiting for him in the anteroom for hours. Kay had still enough self-command to turn away from the deputy manager and address his friendly but somewhat fixed smile solely to the manufacturer. Except for this, he made no response, supporting himself with both hands on the desk, bending forward a little like an obsequious clerk, and looked on while the two men, still talking away, gathered up the papers and disappeared into the manager's room. In the very doorway, the manufacturer turned round to remark that he would not say goodbye yet, for of course he would report the result of the interview to the Herr Assessor. Besides, there was another little matter he had to mention. At last, Kay was alone. He had not the slightest intention of interviewing any more clients, and vaguely realized how pleasant it was that the people waiting outside believed him to be still occupied with the manufacturer, so that nobody, not even the attendant, would disturb him. He went over to the window, perched on the sill, holding onto the latch with one hand, and looked down on the square below. The snow still falling, the sky had not yet cleared. For a long time he sat like this, without knowing what really troubled him, only turning his head from time to time with an alarmed glance towards the anteroom, where he fancied mistakenly that he heard a noise. As the he recovered his composure, went over to the wash basin, washed his face in cold water, and returned to his place at the window with a clear mind. The decision to take his defence into his own hands seemed now more grave to him than he had originally fancied. So long as the advocate was responsible for the case, it had not come really home to him. He had viewed it with a certain detachment and kept beyond reach of immediate contact with it. He had been able to intervene whenever he liked, but he could also withdraw whenever he liked. Now, on the other hand, if he were to conduct his own defence, he would be putting himself completely at the defence of the court, at least for the time being, a policy which would eventually bring about his absolute and definite acquittal, but would meanwhile, provisionally at least, involve him in greater dangers than before. Orla.
So, sorry, will we wait a minute?
Yeah.
You can go on. I just muted Joan's sound.
If he had ever doubted that, his state of mind today in his encounter with the assistant manager and the manufacturer would have been more than enough to convince him. What a stupor had overcome him, merely because he had decided to conduct his own defence. And what would develop later on? What days were lying in wait for him? Would he ever find the right path through all these difficulties? To put up with thoroughgoing defence and any other kind would be a waste of time. To put up with thoroughgoing defence, did that not involve cutting himself off from every other activity? Would he be able to carry that through? And how was he to conduct his case from a bank office? It was not merely the drawing up of a plea. That might be managed on a few weeks' furlough, though to ask for leave of absence just now would be decidedly risky. But a whole trial was involved, whose duration it was impossible to foresee. What an obstacle had suddenly arisen to block Kay's career. And this was the moment when he was supposed to work for the bank? He looked down at his desk. This the time to interview clients and negotiate with them? While his case was unfolding itself, while up in the attics the court officials were poring over the charge papers, was he to devote his attention to the affairs of the bank? It looked like a kind of torture sanctioned by the court, arising from his case and concomitant with it. And would allowances be made for his peculiar position when his work in the bank came to be judged? Never, and by nobody. Next, please.
Okay. The existence of his case was not entirely unknown in the bank, though it was not quite clear who knew of it and how much they knew. But apparently, the rumor had not yet reached the assistant manager. Otherwise, Kay could hardly have failed to perceive it, since the man would have exploited his knowledge without any scruples as a colleague or as a human being. And the manager himself, well, he was certainly well disposed to Kay, and as soon as he had heard of the case, would probably be willing enough to lighten Kay's duties as far as lay in his power. But his good intentions would be checkmate. For Kay's waning prestige was no longer sufficient to counterbalance the influence of the assistant manager, who was gaining a stronger hold on the manager and exploited the latter's invalid condition to his own advantage. So what had Kay to hope? It might be he was only sapping his powers of resistance by harboring these thoughts. Still, it was necessary to have no illusions and to view the position as clearly as the moment allowed. Without any particular motive, merely to put off returning to his desk, he opened the window. It was difficult to open. He had to push the latch with both hands. Then there came into the room through the great window a blend of fog and smoke, filling it with a faint smell of burning soot. Some snowflakes fluttered in too. Oh, an awful autumn, came the voice of the manufacturer from behind Kay. Returning from his colloquy with the assistant manager, he had entered the room, observing unobserved. Kay nodded and shot an apprehensive glance at the man's attaché case, from which doubtless he would now extract all his papers in order to inform Kay how the negotiations had gone. But the manufacturer, catching Kay's eye, merely tapped his attaché case without opening it and said, "You would like to know how it turned out? The final settlement is as good as in my pocket. Charming fellow, your assistant manager, but dangerous to reckon with." He laughed and shook Kay by the hand, trying to make him laugh too. But now Kay's suspicions seized on the fact that the manufacturer had not offered to show him the papers, and he found nothing to laugh at. "Kay," said the manufacturer, "you're under the weather today. You look so depressed." "Yes," said Kay, putting his hand to his brow. "A headache, family troubles." "Ah, yes," said the manufacturer, who was a hasty man and could never listen quietly to anybody. "We all have our troubles." Kay had involuntarily taken a step towards the door, as if to show the manufacturer out, but the latter said, "Kay, there's another little matter I should mention to you. I'm afraid this isn't exactly the moment to bother you with it, but the last 2 times I've been here, I forgot to mention it. And if I put off mentioning it any longer, it would probably lose its point altogether. And that would be a pity, since my information may be of some real value to you." Before Kay had time to make any reply, the man stepped up close to him, tapped him with one finger on the chest, and said in a low voice, "You're involved in a case, aren't you?" Kay started back, crying out, "The assistant manager told you that?" "Not at all," said the manufacturer. "How should the assistant manager know anything about it?" "How do you know about it?" asked Kay, pulling himself together. "Oh, I pick up scraps of information about the court now and then," said the manufacturer, "and that accounts for what I have to mention. So many people seem to be connected with the court," said Kay with a bowed head, and as he led the manufacturer back to the desk, they sat down as before, and the manufacturer began, "Unfortunately, it isn't much that I can tell you, but in these affairs, one shouldn't leave the smallest stone unturned. Besides, I have a strong desire to help you, no matter how modest the help. We have always been good business friends till now, haven't we? Well then." And it's on to Anne.
Mhm. Kay wanted to excuse himself for his behavior that morning, but the manufacturer would not hear of it, pushed his attaché firmly under his arm to show that he was in a hurry to go, and continued, "I heard of your case from a man called Titarelli. He's a painter. Titarelli is only his professional name. I don't know at all what his real name is. For years, he has been in the habit of calling at my office from time to time, bringing little paintings for which I give him a sort of alms. He's almost a beggar. And they're not bad pictures, moors and hearths and so on. These deals, we have got into the way of them, pass off quite smoothly. But there was a time when he turned up too frequently for my taste. I told him so, and we fell into conversation. I was curious to know how he could keep himself going entirely by the painting, and I discovered to my astonishment that he really earned his living as a portrait painter. He worked for the court, he said. "For what court?" I asked. And then he told me about the court with your experience, you can well imagine how amazed I was at the tales he told me. Since then, he brings me the latest news from the court every time he arrives, and in this way, I have gradually acquired a considerable insight into its workings. Of course, Titterelli wags his tongue too freely, and I often have to put a stopper on him, not only because he's certainly a liar, but chiefly because a businessman like myself has so many troubles of his own that he can't afford to bother much about other people's. That's only by the way. Perhaps I thought to myself, Titterelli might be of some use to you. He knows many of the judges, and even if he can hardly have much influence himself, he can at least advise you how to get in touch with influential men. And even if you can't take him as an oracle, still, it seems to me that in your hands, his information might become important. For you are almost as good as a lawyer yourself. I'm always saying the chief clerk is almost a lawyer. Oh, I have no anxiety about your case. Well, would you care to go and see Titterelli? On on my recommendation, he will certainly do all he can for you. I really think you should go. It needn't be today, of course. Sometime, any time will do. Let me add that you needn't feel bound to go just because I advise you to. Not in the least. No, if you think you can dispense with Titterelli, it's certainly better to leave him entirely out of it. Perhaps you've a detailed plan of your own already drawn up, and Titterelli might spoil it. Well, in that case, you'd much better not go to see him, and it would certainly mean swallowing one's pride to go to such a fellow for advice. Anyhow, do just as you like. Here's my letter of recommendation, and here's the address. Next.
Kay took the letter, feeling dashed, and stuck it in his pocket. Even in the most favourable circumstances, the advantages which his recommendation could bring him must be outweighed by the damage implied in the fact that the manufacturer knew about his case and that the painter was spreading news of it. He could hardly bring himself to utter the few obligatory words of thanks to the manufacturer, who was already on his way out. "I'll go to see the man," he said as he shook hands at the door, "or write to him to call here, since I'm so busy. I knew," said the manufacturer, "that you could be depended on to find the best solution. Though I must say, I should have thought you would rather avoid receiving people like this Titterelli at the bank, if you meant to discuss your case with him. Besides, it's not always advisable to let such people get their hands on letters of yours. But I'm sure you've thought it all over and know what you're doing." Kay nodded and accompanied the manufacturer a stage farther through the waiting room. In spite of his outward composure, he was horrified at his own lack of sense. His suggestion of writing to Titterelli had been made merely to show the manufacturer that he appreciated the recommendation and meant to lose no time in making contact with the painter. But left to himself, he would not have hesitated to write to Titterelli had he regarded the man's assistance as important. Yet it needed the manufacturer to point out the dangers lurking in such an action. Had he really lost his powers of judgment to that extent already, if it was possible for him to think of explicitly inviting a questionable character to the bank in order to stage a discussion of his case, with only a door between him and the deputy manager, was it not also possible and even extremely probable that he was overlooking other dangers as well, or blindly running into them? There wasn't always someone at his side to warn him, and this was the moment just when he intended to concentrate all his energies on the case. This was the moment for him to start doubting the alertness of his faculties. Must the difficulties he was faced with in carrying out his office work begin to affect the case as well? At all events, he simply could not understand how he could ever have thought of writing to Titterelli and inviting him to come to the bank. Joe?
He was still shaking his head over it when his assistant came up beside him and drew his attention to three gentlemen who were sitting in his anteroom on a bench. They'd been waiting for a long time to be allowed to see Kay. Now, since Kay's assistant was talking to him, they had stood up, and each of them wanted to take advantage of the situation to get to Kay before the others. Since the bank was inconsiderate enough to let them waste their time here in the waiting room, they weren't inclined to exercise any consideration either. Mr. Kay, one of them was already saying, but Kay had had his winter coat brought to him by his assistant, and said to all three, while he put it on with the assistant's help, "Forgive me, gentlemen, I have no time to receive you at the moment. Unfortunately, I do beg your pardon, but I have an urgent business errand to do, and I need to leave immediately. You've seen for yourself how long I've been held up for. Would you be so kind as to come back tomorrow or at some other time? Or shall we discuss matters by telephone? Or perhaps you'd like to tell me briefly now what it concerns, and I will give you a detailed written answer. However, it would be best if you came another time." These suggestions of Kay's caused the gentleman, who had now waited completely in vain, such astonishment that they looked at each other without a word. "So that's agreed then, is it?" asked Kay, who had turned to face his assistant, who was now also bringing him his hat. Through the open door of Kay's room, they could see the snow falling much more heavily outside. Kay, therefore, pulled his coat collar up and buttoned it right up to his chin. John. Mute, John.
Microphone, John. Microphone. Yeah.
There we go. At that moment, the deputy manager stepped out of the next room, glanced smilingly at Kay in his overcoat, talking to the clients, and asked, "Are you going out, Herr Assessor?" "Yes," said Kay, straightening himself. "I have to go out on business." But the deputy manager had already turned to the three clients. "And these three gentlemen?" he asked. "I believe they have already been waiting a long time." "We have settled what we are to do," said Kay. But now the clients could no longer be held in check. They clustered around Kay, protesting that they would have waited for hours. They would not have waited for hours unless their business had been important, not to say urgent, necessitating immediate discussion at length and in private at that. The deputy manager listened to them for a moment or two, meanwhile observing Kay, who stood holding his hat and dusting it spasmodically. Then he remarked, "Gentlemen, there is a very simple solution. If you will be content with me, I will put myself gladly at your disposal instead of the Herr Assessor. Your business must, of course, be attended to at once. We are businessmen like yourselves and know how valuable time is to a businessman. Will you be so good as to come with me?" And he opened the door which led to the waiting room of his own office. Donna?
How clever the deputy manager was at poaching on the preserves which Kay was forced to abandon. But was not Kay abandoning more than was absolutely needful? While the vaguest, and he could not but admit it, the faintest hopes, he was rushing away to see an unknown painter. His prestige in the bank would suffer irreparable injury. It would probably be better for him to take his overcoat and conciliate at least the two clients waiting next door for their turn to receive the deputy's attention. Kay would have attempted this if he had not at that moment caught sight of the deputy manager himself in Kay's own room, searching through files as if they belonged to him. In great agitation, Kay appeared at the doorway of the rooms, and the deputy manager exclaimed, "Oh, you're not away yet." He turned his face towards Kay. The deep lines scored upon it seemed to speak of power rather than old age, and immediately resumed his search. "I'm looking for a copy of an agreement," he said, which the firm's representative thinks should be among your papers. Won't you help me to look? Kay took a step forward, but the deputy manager said, "Thanks, now I've found it," and carrying a huge package of documents, which obviously contained not only the copy of the agreement, but many other papers as well, he returned to his office. "I'm not equal to him just now," Kay told himself, "but once my personal difficulties are settled, he'll be the first to feel it, and I'll make him suffer for it too." Somewhat soothed by this thought, Kay instructed the attendant, who had been holding open the corridor door for a long time, to inform the manager at any convenient time that he had gone out on a business call, and then, almost elated at the thought of being able to devote himself entirely to his case for a while, he left the bank. He drove at once to the address where the painter lived, in the suburb, which was almost at the diametrically opposite end of town from where the court held its meetings. This was an even poorer neighbourhood. The houses were still darker, the streets filled with sludge, oozing about slowly on top of the melting snow. In the tenement where the painter lived, only one wing of the great double door stood open, and beneath the other wing, in the masonry near the ground, there was a gaping hole, out of which, just as Kay approached, issued a disgusting yellow fluid, steaming hot, from which a rat fled into the adjoining canal. At the foot of the stairs, an infant lay belly down on the floor on the ground, bawling, but one could scarcely hear its shrieks because of the deafening ding that came from a tinsmith's workshop on the other side of the entry. The door of the workshop was open. 3 apprentices were standing in a half circle round some object on which they were beating with their hammers. A great sheet of tin hanging on the wall cast a pallid light, which fell between 2 of the apprentices and lit up their faces and aprons. Orla.
Kay flung only a fleeting glance at all this. He wanted to finish off here as quickly as possible. He would merely ask the painter a few searching questions and return at once to the bank. His work at the bank for the rest of the day would benefit should he have any luck at all on this visit. When he reached the 3rd floor, he had to moderate his pace. He was quite out of breath. Both the stairs and the stories were disproportionately high, and the painter was said to live quite at the top, in an attic. The air was stifling. There was no well for these narrow stairs, which were enclosed on either side by blank walls, showing only at rare intervals a tiny window very high up. Just as Kay paused to take breath, several young girls rushed out of one of the flats and laughingly raced past him on the stairs. Kay slowly followed them, catching up with one who had stumbled and been left behind, and as they ascended together he asked her, "Does a painter called Titorelli live here?" The girl, who was slightly hunchbacked and seemed scarcely 13 years old, nudged him with her elbow and peered up at him knowingly. Neither her youth nor her deformity had saved her from being prematurely debauched. She did not even smile, but stared unwinkingly at Kay with shrewd, bold eyes. Kay pretended not to have noticed her behavior and asked, "Do you know the painter Titorelli?" She nodded and asked in her turn, "What do you want him for?" Kay thought it a good chance to find out a little more about Titorelli while he still had time. "I want him to paint my portrait," he said. "To paint your portrait?" she repeated, letting her jaw fall open, and then she gave Kay a little slap, as if he had said something extraordinarily unexpected or stupid, lifted her abbreviated skirts with both hands, and raced as fast as she could after the other girls, whose shrieks were already dying away in the distance. Duncan.
Yet. At the very next turn of the stairs, Kay ran into all of them. Obviously, the hunchback had reported Kay's intention, and they were waiting there for him. They stood lined up on either side of the stairway, squeezing against the wall to leave room for Kay to pass, and smoothing their skirts down with their hands. All their faces betrayed the same mixture of childishness and depravity, which had prompted this idea of making him run the gauntlet between them. At the top end of the row of girls, who now closed in behind Kay with spurts of laughter, stood the hunchback, ready to lead the way. Thanks to her, he was able to make straight for the right door. He had intended to go on up the main stairs, but she indicated a side stair which branched towards Titarelli's dwelling. This stairway was extremely narrow, very long without any turning, could thus be surveyed in all its length, and was abruptly terminated by Titarelli's door. In contrast to the rest of the stairway, this door was relatively brightly lit by a little fanlight set on an angle above it, and was made of unpainted planks on which sprawled the name Titarelli in red, traced in sweeping brush strokes. Kay, with his escort, was hardly more than halfway up the stairs when someone above, obviously disturbed by the clatter of so many feet, opened the door a little ways, and a man who seemed to be wearing nothing but a nightshirt appeared in the opening. "Oh!" he cried when he saw the approaching mob, and promptly vanished. Hunchback clapped her hands in joy, and the other girls crowded round Kay from behind to urge him on faster. And
Yet they were still mounting towards the top when the painter flung the door wide open and with a deep bow invited Kay to enter. As for the girls, he turned them off. He would not admit one of them, eagerly as they implored and hard as they tried to enter by force, if not by permission. The hunchback alone managed to slip in under the outstretched arm, but he rushed after her, seized her by the skirts, whirled her once round his head, and then set her down before the door among the other girls, who had not dared meanwhile, although he had quitted his post, to cross the threshold. Kay did not know what to make of all this, for they seemed to be on the friendliest terms together. The girls outside the door, craning their necks behind one another, shouted various jocular remarks at the painter, which Kay did not understand, and the painter was laughing too, as he almost hurled the hunchback through the air. Then he shut the door, bowed once more to Kay, held out his hand, and said in introduction, "I'm the painter Tintorelli." Kay pointed at the door behind which the girls were whispering and said, "You seem to be a great favorite here." "Oh, those brats," said the painter, trying to unsuccessfully to button his nightshirt at the neck. He was barefooted, and besides the nightshirt, had on only a pair of wide-legged yellow linen trousers, girt by a belt with a long end flapping to and fro. "Those brats are a real nuisance," he went on, while he desisted from fiddling with his nightshirt, which since the top button had just come off, fetched a chair, and urged Kay to sit down. "I painted one of them once, not any of those you saw, and since then they're all persecuting me. They've all persecuted me. When I'm here myself, they only come in if I let them, but whenever I go away, there's always at least one of them here. They've had a key made for my door, and they lend it round. You can hardly imagine what a nuisance that is. For instance, if I bring a lady here when I want to paint, I unlock the door with my own key and find, say, the hunchback over there at the table, reddening her lips with my paint brushes, while her little sisters, who she's supposed to keep an eye on, are scampering over the whole place and messing up every corner of the room. Or, and this has actually happened last night, I come home very late. By the way, that's why I'm in this state of disrepair. and the room too. Please excuse it. I come home late then and start climbing into bed, and something catches me by the leg. I look under the bed and haul out another of these pests. Why they should make such a set at me, I don't know. You must have noticed yourself that I don't exactly encourage them. And of course, all this disturbs me in my work. If it hadn't been that I have free quarters in this studio, I should have cleared out long ago. Just then, a small voice piped up behind the door with anxious cajolery. Tintorelli, can we come in now? No, said the painter. Not even me? The voice asked again. Not even you, said the painter. And he went to the door and locked it. Next.
Meanwhile, Kay had been looking round the room. It would never have occurred to him that anyone could call this wretched little hole a studio. You could scarcely take 2 strides in any direction. The whole room, floor, walls, and ceiling, was a box of bare wooden planks with cracks showing between them. Opposite Kay, against the wall, stood a bed with a variegated assortment of coverings. In the middle of the room, an easel-supported canvas, covered by a shirt whose sleeves dangled on the floor. Behind Kay was the window, through which in the fog one could not see farther than the snow-covered roof of the next house. The turning of the key in the lock reminded Kay that he had not meant to stay long. Accordingly, he fished the manufacturer's letter from his pocket, handed it to the painter, and said, I heard of you from this gentleman, a friend of yours, and have come here at his suggestion. The painter hastily read the letter through and pitched it onto the bed. If the manufacturer had not so explicitly claimed acquaintance with Tintorelli as a poor man dependent on his charity, one might actually have thought that Tintorelli did not know the manufacturer, or at least could not remember him. On top of this, he now asked, have you come to buy pictures or to have your portrait painted? Kay stared at him in amazement. What could have been in the letter? He had assumed, as a matter of course, that the manufacturer would tell Tintorelli that he had come for no other purpose than to inquire about his case. He'd been altogether too rash and reckless in rushing to this man, but he must make a relevant reply of some kind, and so he said, with a glance at the easel, You're working on a painting just now. Yes, said Tintorelli, stripping the shirt from the easel and throwing it on the bed after the letter. It's a portrait, a good piece of work, but not quite finished yet. Kay was apparently in luck. The opportunity to mention the court was being literally thrown at his head, but this was obviously the portrait of a judge. Also, it strikingly resembled the portrait hanging in the advocate's office. True, this was quite a different judge, a stout man with black bushy beard, which reached far up to on his cheeks on either side. Moreover, the other portrait was in oils, while this was lightly and as yet indistinctly sketched in pastel. Yet everything else showed a close resemblance, for here too, the judge seemed to be on the point of starting menacingly from his high seat, bracing himself firmly on the arms of it. That must be a judge, Kay felt like saying at once, but he checked himself for the time being and approached the picture as if he wished to study the detail. A large figure rising in the middle of the picture, from the high back of the chair he could not identify, and he asked the painter whom it was intended to represent. It still needed a few more touches, the painter replied, and fetched a crayon from a table, armed with which he worked a little at the outline of the figure, but without making it any more recognizable to Kay. It is justice, said the painter at last. Now I can recognize it, said Kay. That's the bandage over the eyes, and here are the scales. But aren't there wings on the figure's heels, and isn't it flying? Yes, said the painter. My instructions were to paint it like that. Actually, it is justice and the goddess of victory in one. Not a very good combination, surely, said Kay, smiling. Justice must stand quite still, or else the scales will waver, and a just verdict will become impossible. I had to follow my client's instructions, said the painter. Of course, said Kay, who would not wish to give any offence by his remark. You have painted the figure as it actually stands, above the high seat. No, said the painter. I've neither seen the figure nor the high seat. That is all invention, but I am told what to paint, and I paint it. Now, Joe, or
What? Asked Kay, pretending he hadn't fully understood the painter. Surely that's a judge sitting on the throne. Yes, said the painter, but he isn't a high judge, and he's never sat on a throne like that. And he has himself painted in such a solemn pose. He's sitting there like a presiding judge. Yes, these gentlemen are vain, said the painter, but they have special permission to be painted in that way. Everyone is told exactly how he can be painted. It's just that, unfortunately, in this picture, the details of his clothing and the chair can't be made out, as the pastels aren't suitable for pictures like this. Yes, said Kay. It's strange that it's done in pastels. Those were the judge's wishes, said the painter. It's destined for a lady. Do you want to take up there, John?
Okay, fine.
Yeah, let's switch to just a few sentences. Otherwise, we will definitely not have any time to talk about anything.
The sight of the picture seemed to have roused his ardor. He rolled up his shirt sleeves, took several crayons in his hand, and as Kay watched the delicate crayon strokes, a reddish-yellow shadow began to grow around the head of the judge, a shadow which tapered off in long rays as it approached the edge of the picture. Dunham?
Yeah. This plate of shadow, bit by bit, surrounded the head like a halo or a high mark of distinction. But the figure of justice was left bright, except for an almost imperceptible touch of shadow. That brightness brought the figure sweeping right into the foreground, and it no longer suggested the goddess of justice, or even the goddess of victory, but looked exactly like a goddess of the hunted full cry. The painter's activities absorbed Kay against his will, and in the end he began to reproach himself for having stayed so long without even touching on the business that brought him. "What is the name of this judge?" he asked suddenly. "I'm not allowed to tell," replied the painter, stooping over the picture and ostentatiously ignoring the guest whom at first he had greeted with such consideration. Orla.
Kay put this down to caprice and was annoyed that his time should be wasted in such a manner. "You were in the confidence of the court, I take it?" he asked. The painter laid down his crayons at once, straightened himself, rubbed his hands, and looked at Kay with a smile. "Come out with the truth," he said. "You want to find out something about the court, as your letter of recommendation told me, I may say, and you started talking about my paintings only to win me over." Duncan.
But I don't take that ill. You could hardly have known that that wasn't the right way to tackle me. "Oh, please don't apologize," I said sharply, as Kay tried to make some excuse. Then he continued, "Besides, you're quite right in what you say. I am in the confidence of the court." And
Okay, he paused as if he wanted to give Kay time to digest this fact. Now they could hear the girls behind the door again. They seemed to be crowding around the keyhole. Perhaps they could see into the room through the cracks in the door as well. Kay abandoned any attempt at apology, for he did not want to deflect the conversation, nor did he want the painter to feel too important and so become, in a sense, inaccessible. Accordingly, he asked, "Is your position an official appointment?" "No," said the painter curtly, as if the question had cut him short. Next.
Kay, being anxious to keep him going, said, "Well, such unrecognized posts often carry more influence with them than the official ones." "That is just how it is with me," said the painter, knitting his brow and nodding. "The manufacturer mentioned your case to me yesterday. He asked me if I wouldn't help you, I said to him, let the man come and see me sometime, and I'm delighted to see you here so soon. Okay.
Hmm. Right in the middle of
Yeah,
dynamic.
yeah. It's a long way to go to the end of that paragraph.
It is, but
Couple
perhaps
pages.
we're just going to have to bite the bullet and go.
It's 3 pages. It's 3
Well,
pages.
actually, it's just 1, 2. It's like 2 pages.
Yeah, but we're at a point there where he says, I'm delighted you've come to see me. That's, it's
Yeah.
memorable. Anyway, sorry, I'm just talking off the top of my head there. Go ahead.
I feel like I'm in the position of Kay right at the moment where
Yeah.
they're moving
There's
so
just
many
I've
fast,
lost
Yeah.
my
so many
way.
different directions. I'm not sure what to do.
Yeah, okay.
I think that's the strange thing about reading this, that we find ourselves a
Yeah,
lot of time in the exact position that Kafka
yeah.
is describing with Kay. It's uncanny kind of the way,
Yeah.
yeah.
The text follows the theme. Anyway, I keep going. The matter seems to be of great concern to you. And of course, I'm not surprised about that. Would you like to take your coat off first? Although Kay had only intended to stay for a very short time, this invitation for the painter was very welcome. The air in the room had gradually become oppressive. He had frequently been casting surprised glances at a small, undoubtedly unlit cast iron stove in the corner. The stuffy atmosphere in the room was inexplicable. While he was taking off his winter coat and also unbuttoning his jacket, the painter said apologetically, I must have warmth. It's very cozy here, isn't it? The room is very well located in that respect. Kay gave no answer, though it wasn't actually the temperature that made him uncomfortable, but rather the heavy air, which almost made it difficult to breathe. The room probably hadn't been aired for a long time. Kay's discomfort was amplified by the fact that the painter asked him to sit on the bed, while he himself sat down in front of the easel on the only chair in the room. There we go. Joan, can you?
Titorelli also seemed to misunderstand Kay's reasons for sitting on the edge of the bed. He urged him to make himself comfortable and actually pushed the reluctant Kay deep down among the bedclothes and pillows. Then he returned to his chair again and at last put his first serious question, which made Kay forget everything else. Are you innocent? He asked. Yes, said Kay. The answering of this question gave him a feeling of real happiness, particularly as he was addressing a private individual and therefore need fear no consequences. Donna?
Nobody else had yet asked him such a frank question. To savor to the full his elation, he added, I am completely innocent. I see, said the painter, bending his head as if in thought. Suddenly he raised it again and said, if you are innocent, then the matter is quite simple. Kay's eyes darkened. This man who said he was in the confidence of the court was talking like an ignorant child. My innocence doesn't make the matter any simpler, said Kay. But after all, he could not help smiling. And then he slowly shook his head. I have to fight against countless subtleties in which the court is likely to lose itself. And in the end, out of nothing at all, an enormous fabric of guilt will be conjured up. Yes, yes, of course, said the painter, as if Kay were needlessly interrupting the thread of his ideas. But you're innocent all the same. Why, yes, said Kay. That's the main thing, said the painter. He was not to be moved by argument, yet in spite of his decisiveness, it was not clear whether he spoke out of conviction or out of mere indifference. Orla.
Kay wanted first to be sure of this, so he said, You know the court much better than I do, I feel certain. I don't know much more about it than what I've heard from all sorts and conditions of people. But they all agree on one thing, that charges are never made frivolously, and that the court, once it has brought a charge against someone, is firmly convinced of the guilt of the accused, and can be dislodged from that conviction only with the greatest difficulty. The greatest difficulty? Cried the painter, flinging one hand in the air. The court can never be dislodged from that conviction. If I were to paint all the judges in a row on one canvas and you were to plead your case in court, you would have more hope of success than before the actual court. I see, said Kay to himself, forgetting that he had merely wished to pump the painter. Duncan.
Okay. We will stop right here. We will stop right here.
Again, a girl's voice. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, it gets crazier next week. I just
It's just the futility of it.
Yeah.
You know, that he's not going to get anywhere. They're going to give it, whether the manager or whatever is mistaken, he gets misinformation and then he follows it up, and it's crazier than crazy with a painter. You think, well, this is a silly story, but the way he tells it, the futility of the whole thing becomes your own experience.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah.
Right.
He keeps getting in the way of everything himself. Kay does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he has much choice, though.
No.
Yeah.
We found out what his job is this week. Jones' translation there, he's called her assessor.
Yeah.
So we have a manager, who would be middle grade, who has an assistant.
Mhm.
And probably has a number of assessors, and an assessor is just doing a preliminary evaluation on proposals.
Translation of what, Joe?
He's an assessor who would, he's just doing a preliminary screening of a proposal.
Oh.
Coming in. That's why he was writing. He was, moving his pen backwards and forwards, but he wasn't doing anything. And
So he wasn't.
Bert thinks he's doing calculations.
Then he wasn't that important after all.
Well,
He's
he's
an important job.
He's the type of judge. He's the type of judge where he listens to what the clients have to say, and then he decides, whether they go this way or they go that way.
Yeah. He's just looking to see he's just checking the sales ratio and the working capital ratio, and if they're okay, it goes on to someone else, goes up the line to check out the market aspect. So he's doing I'm sorry, sir, but your dots are wrong. It's that kind of an assessor, and that ties in with Kafka's own job as an insurance assessor. You see, so
compensation.
Yeah. So saying, you've claimed for the whole car, and you've only had a windscreen wiper broken. That sort of he's all this a very important man, a very important this, a very important that. That's his view of the world, but it's only his view.
I think though what throws everything off is that before the people came to arrest him, he just went and did his job.
Yeah.
He'd get up at a certain time, eat his breakfast in a certain way, go to the office in a certain way, see those clients, make his assessments if you were, and then he would go home, maybe go see his girlfriend, maybe, something, go have a drink, go to bed, wake up in the morning, do it again. But now all of a sudden, a new routine has come in.
Yeah.
the arrest.
Yeah.
A whole nother bureaucracy has suddenly entered his life unexpectedly.
Yeah.
And now we have clashing bureaucracies,
Yeah.
clashing routines. Where and he's no longer sure of what to do about anything.
Yeah.
Well, there's
'Cause
nothing
he can't-
concrete that has been said to him. It's everything is a mystery.
Mm.
He doesn't know why he's in court. He's never been told what he's guilty of. He says he's innocent. Maybe he isn't.
Yeah.
There's
And everywhere he turns, the unexpected in it. It
Yeah.
looks ordinary, but it's completely unexpected. I like the way it said that wherever he was going to Torelli was at the exact opposite, diametrically opposite the place where the court was. So he was going in completely the other direction.
Yeah.
And then he saw the yellow liquid pouring out, and then he goes onto the stairs,
Right.
and
Yeah.
and everything is claustrophobic. There's everything around him is claustrophobic, and the studio is so small, and he can't breathe, and I don't know how he keeps going, Kay, And then he sits on the bed and Aaron pushes him, says, relax there. Like and then he starts to paint, and Kay pretends that he's interested in the painting, and it's kind of fabulous writing, like in one way, this kind of concentrated detail and what's going on in Kay's mind at the same time,
And
Yeah,
the hunchback child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Long in the
Yeah.
air.
Yeah,
All the confusion of the girls,
Yeah.
it just seems absurd that this would have been a professional contact.
Yeah.
yeah,
And they're listening at the door.
yeah,
And they've had a key made to the painters.
yeah,
Yeah.
and he's
And it's interesting, the painter prefers portraits.
yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Mm.
It's
I
not
love
landscape,
the-
it's portraits.
I love the image of the painting. The judge is painted
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
goddess Justice,
Yeah.
with the scales and the blindfold.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Somebody has got to have reproduced that somewhere.
Yeah, but
It's-
the winged feet
but
of victory.
it is in the movie. It is in the movie by Wells, I believe. And the subject is described as a dwarf and painted in such a way that, from looking from lower up at him, he looks like he's a normal sized person.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh, I
Whether-
see.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. The throne, and sits on the throne of justice, like he's a powerful person.
Yeah. A throne of justice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I tell a little something, Duncan? It reminds me, it makes me laugh. There's a famous statue in Dublin Castle. On the main entrance to Dublin Castle, Justice is up over there. This is put there by the British, you see? And Justice has the scales and she has the blindfold. But that's where the courts originally sat. They're no longer there.
Mhm.
But there's a wonderful subconscious mistake they made in that the justice has its back turned on the entrance of people, turned on the city, and the justice is looking towards the people in the castle and turns its back.
Oh, okay.
And British justice
Yeah.
has its back turned to the people of Dublin.
Yeah.
And they put it up there themselves. It's just so subconscious, and that's what I was thinking. Gosh, this is fantastic imagery. It's the first part of the book that I've sort of, said, wow, this is getting there.
Wow. Wow, that's fantastic image of the.
And combining victory with justice. Justice is not supposed to be about winning. It's supposed to be fair to all. No winners and losers,
Well, not if you're in America these days.
Yeah, the L word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that
When one
statute-
person has the right to rule on everything, let criminals out of jail and
Oh yeah, yeah.
give immunity to anybody he wants. I mean, you think that Kafka in 1915
yeah.
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 is telling an absurd story, and here we are 100 years later, we're living the nightmare.
It's
We-
amazing, yeah. The kind
We've
of
become
yeah.
we've become accustomed to absurdity.
Yeah,
Mhm.
It's-
Yeah.
Because I'll remember it was not that long afterwards, after Kafka was not that long after, and then we had Nazi Germany come up, and then we had Camus come
Mhm.
in and said, look, life is absurd.
Mm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
If you're going to live a life, you have to answer the question, am I going to commit suicide or not? If you're not
Mm.
going to commit suicide, then you just have to take a full look at the absurdity and move on and
yeah,
keep going.
yeah.
And this is the thing you were talking about, the statue in Dublin. There's all kinds of
Yeah.
possibilities there. I don't know who the artist was. Maybe whoever put it up did that intentionally.
I doubt it. Because the choice was turning the back towards the courts. You see, so you can see it's it just shouldn't have been put up over the gate. It should have been in a little, it should be down at street level on the way in, and
Right.
you just
Right.
put it on the gate.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could put it in front of the White House. Be very appropriate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh,
Fear
yeah.
not, this will be taken care of.
Oh, I don't know. I
This
don't.
will be taken care of. The
It's-
wheels are moving slowly, but the wheels are moving.
Oh, I like your optimism.
But it also shows in America the power of boycotting, which term started in Ireland.
Yeah.
We
Mhm.
boycott the
Mm.
CBS channel, one of our three major TV coverages. It's going to have a major financial impact. It
Yeah.
already has.
Oh, yeah. And
But
actually,
the correction is coming from the people,
Yeah.
making a decision now. And then also the revelations that are going on about this Epstein character. Trump cannot stamp out all of the.
No, I can't. No,
He
but
can't.
I would be more worried about the people behind him. Like he's
Oh,
and
absolutely.
he really is an ignorant windbag.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, he's over here in Scotland at the moment, making a fool
Yeah.
of himself every time he
Right.
opens his mouth. And but it's the people behind him that I'd be worried about, because they'll find another. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
The role of the people behind him, Joe, is to pick up his golf balls. I was watching him last night trying to put a ball, which he missed the hole and then just walked away. So somebody else had to pick up the ball.
Yeah.
So there must be a golf ball picker-upper in the entourage.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but then see that's a television presenter. He knows how to do good television.
Well,
But
here he
it's
picks up his ball and he puts it next to the hole.
yeah.
Yeah. And then he marks his card as if he's had a hole in one.
Oh yeah. But like, the man is a liar. I know he
Oh my God.
The grand plan is to get it this counter revolution done before he collapses,
yes.
Yeah.
and to make enough changes in the legal system
Yeah.
to make it stick.
That's right.
I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But the problem,
I think they're going to get very close, but the fact of the matter is, for as smart as these people think they are, they're not very smart.
Yeah.
see, it's not like they're all only a symptom of the real problem. Is that everything's for sale.
Yeah,
It's
Mhm.
corrupt system, and
right.
that'll just produce more of the same.
Yeah,
And,
it's
and a total
hedge funds
outsider,
gone crazy.
I shouldn't be commenting on the subject really, but it strikes me that he's only a symptom.
Yes, but he's a
Yeah.
very useful symptom. He is one of the very few people who actually knows how to use media,
Yeah,
because the media trained him,
yeah,
one thing, and he was trained by his mentor, Roy Kahn, very bad but smart guy.
yeah.
But they don't have the competence.
Oh, there's no competence. There's zero competence. He's talking about everything
Yeah,
from wars in
and
Cambodia and on. And you know, it's it carries no weight at all. I mean, people are just learning to play him,
mhm.
and he won't be there for long. Hopefully, that's sort of an approach.
I
But
don't
I,
think I don't
but
think
again, if he was the problem, then we'd be okay. But he's not the problem. He's only the
well,
symptom.
Things
well, we
are
we can
starting to
argue
turn a bit.
to the
I was
chicken.
at a family reunion yesterday,
Yeah.
and last year's reunion, people would say they're Trumpsters in this area, and
Yeah.
they would just say, "Well, you'll see what happens. With some suffering now, but it'll be better in the long run."
That'd be great.
But yesterday, they were all like, as if they had never voted for Trump.
Yeah.
Never
There you go.
voted
That's
for
good.
him.
That's
Yeah,
good.
that he's betrayed his followers, but they're not amongst them. Oh my God.
Yeah,
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 well, everybody is in Kay's position.
Yeah, yeah.
When Kay he's in his office, he's got a customer in front of him,
Mhm.
okay?
yeah,
And he's paralyzed.
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah,
he's got two different
yeah,
institutions making different demands, and he can't
and
handle schizophrenia.
yeah.
yeah.
But he's also trying to do his own investigation about his case.
Well, but this is the whole thing, and he's got the assistant manager who's jockeying for his position. So
Hmm.
it's just he's getting in more and more this is not unlike the way a lot of people are feeling right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe
It's
that's what
like
makes it, Duncan.
It's
Sorry.
universal.
it is, it is
It's
what makes this.
universal. See?
Yeah. But I think
Yeah.
maybe that's what makes this book so hard to read.
Hmm.
Just the time we're reading it at, it's ringing a lot of bells,
Mhm.
probably subconsciously too.
I was looking up stuff. Do you think the assistant manager is winding him up by sending him off on a wild goose chase to the painter?
No, that's
No.
the industrialist,
That's his
the
client.
manufacturer.
That's the client, not the assistant manager.
Yeah, but you see, has the assistant manager talked to the client and gone, "This is a great idea.
Oh,
No,
yeah, yeah,
no.
yeah,
Okay,
We'll wind them up."
I
yeah.
find that vaguely possible, but he had already announced when he first came in that he had another matter he wanted to talk to Kay about after they concluded their official
That's
business.
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah.
then there was the confusion where Kay found himself paralyzed and couldn't and actually literally tuned out. He went catatonic.
Yeah.
And the assistant manager noticed that Kay was catatonic, and so came in and grabbed the client and took him away.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. Then the client came back in and told
and
him the other piece of
by the
business,
way, yeah,
et cetera, et cetera. So, and Kay won his case is taking precedent over his job at this point. And
Yeah.
so he
Yeah.
rushes away from his job, even with 3 other clients waiting to see him.
Hmm.
Yeah.
His obsession is becoming total now.
Mhm.
yeah, obsession. Yeah,
So, and it's very fascinating. I think it's actually an extremely accurate description
Hmm.
of what happens to almost anybody when they get caught in conflicting institutional demands.
yes,
And
yeah,
Kafka's ability to do this is Very effective.
Mm.
Very effective. And then every step he takes, like he goes off, so he leaves, and he leaves worried because he sees the assistant manager taking the other 3 clients away from him and
Yeah.
going through his files, but he leaves anyway. He
Yeah.
goes across town, and then he gets caught up with these young urchins.
Yeah.
Leaves the reader feeling very frustrated.
Yeah.
I think that's the whole purpose, though. That's the brilliance.
That's Tom's point about
Yeah.
the text following the theme. Yeah.
Mhm.
The text actually creating in the reader.
And yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
yeah.
That's right. You are in this passage with this character.
Yeah.
Well, and
Yeah.
we're able to take this description written 100 years ago
Yeah.
Yeah.
and make it our own because we all have experiences
Mm.
kind of like this.
Mhm.
Mm.
But
This
it's
is-
sort of,
this
I
is-
think he's writing it like this could happen to you.
Yeah.
I think
know-
he's writing it as this is happening to you too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're a modern person, this is happening to you.
Yeah.
Well, I
That's
don't
how
think,
you- that's how you can recognize it. Is
yeah,
because-
but I'm not, to me, it didn't happen until we had a Trump.
Okay.
This level,
But
yeah.
I'm not going to deny your experience.
Except when you call if you have a problem and you make a call and they answer it and they say, press 1 if it's
Oh,
this,
yeah.
press 2, that, and you
Yeah.
don't know precisely what your problem is. You
Yeah.
need
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
words.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
need
yeah.
many more words. It's
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Press 1 for sales, press 2 for legal, press 3 for accounting, press 4 for
tell us what your problem is in a few words.
yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's why I go, okay,
That's it.
so I usually at that point press 0
Yeah.
and
Trying to get-
start cursing and yelling. This is a tactic.
Yeah,
Start cursing and yelling and saying customer representative
right.
over,
I've tried that. It doesn't
over
work.
and over and over again.
Yeah.
About 10 years ago, I met someone to do with work was talking about private banking. This is before the whole AI taking off.
Yeah.
And they said that the more money you had, the more likely a real person was going to talk to you.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
And so that was going to be the defining factor.
Mm.
Most
Yeah.
important thing that was going to be valuable in the future was having real people speak to you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right. Yes. It is-
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, lots of businesses now are not answering phones. Some of them don't even have phones. Small businesses, they don't. You've just got people's email addresses.
Mm.
So now, unless you're on sales, that sort of thing. Like it's very expensive to run a whole lot of people answering phones from people whose umbrella has blown inside out or something. It's-
Mhm. Let's see. Okay, so we got that there, and then I like the fact that Kay is beginning to recognize that he is being taken over and being paralyzed by his concern with his case,
yeah.
and that he's not able to perform his other functions at the level that he was doing it prior to this.
Mm.
Would you compare that with the Republicans today who voted for Trump that are changing their mind? That they're coming to a realization that he's not so great? That
Well, yeah, I think lots of them have come to that realization, but they don't know what to do about it.
either does
Well,
Kay.
But it wasn't clear. And, Trump has gone way beyond anything anybody expected. They thought he was going to bring them prosperity. He was going to clean up Washington, but he has gone beyond the beyond. No one would have predicted this. And I think when the Medicare cuts happen and
Other than me.
Yeah.
what, oh
I-
yeah,
I-
okay, okay.
yeah.
I never realized the depravity. I mean,
Yeah.
right now we have the Kennedy Center in Washington, which is built after the assassination of President Kennedy. It's a concert hall with a number of theaters in it. And who does he want to name it after? Himself?
Right.
Melania,
His wife.
Melania.
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 I
She's
mean,
been there once.
yeah, and the insult to the Kennedy memory in
Oh, yeah.
America, you would,
That is deliberate. That is
Yeah.
absolutely deliberate. He is rubbing everybody's noses. But you know
Yeah.
who actually has the best response so far, and it adds to the hilarity and the absurdity. Of course, it's horrifying at the same time. Is the South Park,
yeah,
that dumb
Yes.
cartoon?
yeah,
They
yeah.
have taken complete advantage of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they waited until Paramount gave them this huge contract.
Yeah.
16
And what do
million.
they do? They show Satan in bed with Trump,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Satan complaining about how it's damaging his image to have
Yeah.
I didn't see that. That's
Yeah.
great.
See, satire is always the authoritarian is weak.
Yeah,
Accolades.
the other one is I have a brother who's an attorney who was like a civil rights type attorney,
Yeah.
and he started this whole movement in America about we have the Cleveland Indians had a mascot called Chief Wahoo, and it was really a distorted picture of an Indian. And
Right.
so he got Native American tribes to protest this image. It wasn't with their permission, and
Yeah.
on and on. And it affected teams across the country that changed their name and their logo from the Redskins and
Oh yes, of course. Yeah.
yeah. College and Stanford used to have the Indian go out and do a war dance before every
Yeah.
football game. But anyway, what do you think Trump's doing? He's reversing the whole thing.
gonna
He's
reverse- yes,
ordering the
no, this is-
teams to
yes.
resume Redskins and Indian names. How
Yeah.
could he? It's the depth that he's going to disrupt the country.
It's great. It's great.
Well, anyway,
He is our greatest ally at this point.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. The moment for me is when he produced the photograph of himself as a pope. Like
Oh.
it's
Uh-huh.
like
Oh, yes, that was
you're dealing with a super idiot.
Yeah.
You know? Like the guy should be in a place with high walls and bars.
Yeah. I think I can safely say
Yeah.
that when the dam breaks,
Yeah.
the whole lake is going to empty.
Yeah.
And that's
Okay.
exactly what's happening right now. Right now, the dams, the Republicans are trying to keep the dam together, and they're talking
Yeah.
about getting extra seats in Texas and all this stuff. And it's strong. It's still strong, but it's shaking,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's gonna go.
Well, they
Yeah.
I don't know when, but it's gonna go, and I'm pretty sure I'll still be here to see it.
But what will come in its place? Never mind the personality. What comes in its place? And like the turning point for me would be if political contributions were restricted.
Yeah, that would.
That would make sense. This idea that
Yeah.
you can pump millions at getting, guys who believe in square wheels in charge, but they get it because big money goes in with them. Until you control that, you just get another one, and
I believe that there is so much, how do I say it? So many people have exposed themselves
yeah,
and are continuing to expose themselves that any group with some integrity still standing when the dam breaks has a very good chance of gaining great ground. And so I'm ultimately hopeful.
It's hard to know.
But it certainly is. I've told you before. I have my no trespassing signs in my driveway.
Yeah. But you know, the
And
problem
I-
is, but you've all these crazies. Like you've crazy Christians, you've crazy Jewish people, you've just plain crazies. And like, you know, like all the quiet Americans I know and respect and the works. And, you know, there's three of those crazies for every one of them, and they all have a vote. You know?
I don't think that's actually true, Joe. And actually,
No, well-
when the legal system is really teetering right now, and it takes almost no time at all. In a country that has had a somewhat stable legal system, it only takes a couple of weeks of anarchy
Yeah.
before people suddenly wake up and go, you know what? Rule of law is a pretty good idea.
Yeah, except it's weakening all the time, and he's trying
Yes.
very hard to weaken it. He's just
Yeah.
nominated this judge.
Yeah.
All right, but let me assure you,
He's not going to get in.
we're all going to live to see a change for the better.
No, I'm too old, I'm afraid.
No, I'm older than, no. I
No,
may be older than you, Joan. I'm not sure. I think we've gone through this before. But no, I think within while we're still on the planet, we will see the change come. And you know, at first it will just be a kind of things are getting a little bit better. A little bit better. A
yeah,
little
the
bit.
Democrats are not very smart. They're very weak. They don't have a plan, even if they did take over.
Are you talking about who you're talking about?
The Democrats.
I heard
Oh,
that.
actually they do.
Yeah,
Actually,
I
they
heard
do.
Buttigieg is doing quite well.
Yeah, they do. There's some very strong.
Yeah,
Gavin Newsom is
Gavin
actually doing
Newsom
quite
and-
well. Buttigieg is doing well.
Yeah.
AOC is doing well.
Yeah.
There are a number of pretty smart people. We got a guy
Yeah.
here in Austin, Texas. He's just a representative. Greg Cesar. He's very good. He's very good. We got Beto O'Ryan here in Beto
Yeah.
O'Rourke here in Texas. We have the people. The problem with the Democratic Party is that under Clinton, they became too dependent upon corporate money.
Yeah.
And they don't want to give that up. And the establishment Democrats are not going to give it up until they see that they have no choice. And then they're going to, oh, yeah, we didn't like that system anyway. In the meantime, we have enough politicians who are maturing and who are smart, who are not beholden to the corporate money system. And I think that they can get organized fairly quickly once the change starts. So I'm, you know, of course, you know, tomorrow I may be sitting here in a blue funk, but I notice in my own mood changes that I'm predominantly getting more positive with
You're
dips.
very positive. You're very positive.
I was very down in the dumps there for months and months and months,
That's
but
right,
I,
that's
you know,
right,
I'm
yeah.
getting more positive. So I think it's going to be okay, but it's going to be a crazy show, you know, before it happens. Anyway,
Yeah.
thank
I'm
you all
gonna
very
have,
much. It is 15 minutes before the next hour.
yeah, I'm gonna have to go.
Yeah.
Me too.
Okay. Good old
Good night.
Kafka.
Hello,
Good night.
everybody.
Reminder,
everyone.
next Monday
Thank you.
is first Monday. Next Monday's
Okay.
first
Oh,
Monday.
that's right. What we bring something, tell us again.
Bring some show and tell.
Show and tell?
Show and
Okay.
tell.
Okay.
Whatever, in other words.
Okay.
Whatever. Yes. Okay.
Bye, amigo.
Bye.